This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how we can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. Well, if there's one question that's uppermost in people's minds these days, it's this. How do we navigate through these challenging times in a way that gives us power, hope, and healing? Believe you me, I know it can be hard, especially when it's so easy to slip into negativity and despair. And that's why I've been seeking out experts who can help us rise to become our best selves. Today, I'm honored to welcome another authority, my special guest, Cyndi Dale. Cyndi is an internationally renowned speaker, healer, educator, and author of 27 books about energy medicine, intuition, and spirituality. Her latest book is Energy Healing for Trauma, Stress, and Chronic Conditions. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Cyndi.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, even though we're going to talk about things like fear.
Oh, believe me, and that's actually one of the first things I do want to ask you about. Because Cyndi, like I said, I've spoken with so many people since this pandemic struck. They all see this as a time for us to look within and to rediscover our true selves. But the one thing that often stops us in our tracks is fear. So my question to you is there a remedy for this? And if so, how do we tackle fear in a way that empowers us?
I think that's an important question. And I do have to admit, I have been applying my own ideas to myself, because when we were first put in lockdown, I was in shock, as I think most of us were. And some people are in increasing shock because this is a mobile issue. It just keeps moving and shifting, which life does anyway. Like, if we're really honest, it's all about the fear of uncertainty. And if we're even more honest, I think most of us have a fear of uncertainty all the time. But when we first went into lockdown, I just became scared. I didn't know, should I go to the grocery store? Shouldn't I? When I went, I found my heart pounding. And it took me a while to figure out how to get back into a centered place and calm myself down. And one of the differentiating factors that I keep bringing up for myself and for people I work with is we really have to discern between healthy fear and unhealthy fear. And I'm sure you work with that as well. You know, kind of having to step back and go, now, let's not blow this off, or let's not, just make the fear disappear or go into a trauma analysis with it if it's a healthy fear. So I think we first have to ask ourselves, when are we being healthy with our fear?
So what is a healthy fear?
Well, healthy fear is how we're made. I mean, if you take every feeling down to what it's supposed to do for survival and love, right? We're here about, we've got to survive if we're going to keep going and be who we are and fulfill our purposes. And we want to make connections. So from that place, if we feel a healthy fear, it's because that fear is giving us a message. We're supposed to stop because we're not safe. Something is not safe. A person's not safe. A situation isn't safe. Maybe an idea that we hold isn't safe. And at that point, I think we've got to go, okay, if this is a true feeling, a statement, a message, I need to figure out how to go forward, backward, or to the left, or to the right. So, and then the fear is supposed to disappear if we act on it.
Does it?
If it's a healthy fear, right? And I know that after a crisis, we usually go into shock. The bigger the crisis, the bigger the shock, and we're able to act, and then we feel the fear afterwards. But it's a healthy fear because we really were in danger. And let's say, we've got 2 events we could go to, and everybody's in a different state of open, lockdown, illness, etc. But we're just going to talk the virus, SARS-CoV-2 for just a second, okay? So let's say there's 2 situations. I can stay at home, or I could go to a friend's where they're promising to socially distance. They're promising to be good, you bring your own food, etc. So if I'm tuning into those 2 situations and I feel much more comfortable staying at home, and I get this gnawing fear if I think of going to my friends, as soon as I decide not to go, that fear should disappear. If it doesn't disappear, that's not really the issue. And then I have to do some deeper dive to figure out, what's this fear trying to show me? Do I have old trauma? Am I feeling other people's feelings? Because sometimes when we feel scared, it's not really our fear. It might be somebody else's. Or it could be a childhood issue or an adult issue that's just locked in place. And, we also pick up fear from our ancestors. So I think 80% of what we think of as our issue or our emotion often really isn't. We're just the tip of the iceberg.
So before you said that, taking action is a way to help dissipate the fear. And I think that always comes into play in so many things, that when we're emotion, we're not letting our thoughts run us. We are running our lives. We're not letting our thoughts run us. And I think that plays a big part in it. But you said something before about other people, and I'm thinking of, one of the things that so many people have said to me is, you just turn off all media, because media is just going to scare you. But, we're human, we live lives, we'll turn on the news and hear something that's obviously going to scare us. Or, our friends or our loved ones will say things that, will show their fears. How do we keep ourselves from absorbing fears that come from other people?
I think that really is a key. And for some of us, we need a certain amount of data to feel safe. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm just in a vacuum. I know that my type of personality, I'm very empathic, I'm very physically based. So and I am visual and verbal, but I gauge my place in the world through my sense of my body and, how I'm feeling, satisfied, not safe, not, and all of this. So I don't watch the visual news because that imprints me too much and it terrifies me. But if I don't have a certain amount of data, I just get it off my iPhone, then I feel scared. So I think some of it is we have to figure out what type of person we are. Are we more verbal, visual, empathic? What do we need to let in and what do we need to keep away from? But honestly, I still think that these are methods and means and avenues, as well as hanging out with other people or being on the phone or a Zoom with them, that we just can get overloaded with their issues, with their feelings, whatever they are, their physical pains. Many of us are empaths. So we feel others' physical aches, pains, illnesses, maybe their emotions, maybe what they think, maybe their negativity. There's all kinds of stuff that floats around, and it doesn't matter if you're in the same room or not. So I think it's first important to be really honest about if you're an empath. Like, we know it by now. Those of us who are empathic, I think we figured it out. We may not know what to do all the time, but if we get together with people and pretty soon we're crying and they used to be crying, we've absorbed their feelings. If we get together with somebody and they have aches and pains and suddenly we do, or we go to the movies and everything that happens to our heroine or our hero, we feel in our own body. We're an empath. So we just have to own it, because then we can take some steps to ask ourselves, like, is this mine or not? And use various energetic techniques or even our dreams, to kind of like flush out what's not ours. And how about making a decision? We're not going to pick up what's not ours anymore. Sometimes we just have to make a decision too.
Getting back to things that are ours, that belong to us, isn't it true that there are things from our past traumas that give us fear. And even not only just past traumas in our lives, but even in our past lives, I mean, we may not even be aware of on any kind of conscious level. So how do you deal with that?
Exactly. Well, if you can't get rid of it, like a situation like a paranoia or a fear, or fear of dogs, fear of riding in airplanes, fear of small spaces, fear that, this invisible virus is going to get you no matter what you do. If anything feels too big, then, I always tell somebody, first ask, for grace, first ask to be flushed by guides or your spirit or what you believe in of anything that's not yours. So I start there. And then what's left is yours. So if you can track it to a childhood event, then you work on the childhood event. Like I used to be scared of dogs, and my mom told me, well, you know what? When you were like a year and a half, you crawled under the neighbor's fence and the dogs attacked you. So that's pre-verbal. But once I knew that, I sat in it a few minutes. I envisioned my little child self, and I said, it's okay. You're done with that. You're out of that situation. You're big now. You can be protected. And so you don't need to be scared of dogs. And I've had dogs ever since, in my own adult life. But you're exactly right. Past lives are a rich basin of our fears. I worked with a woman, and I'm sure you've worked at these levels too. I worked with a woman who was terrified of flying, and there was no reason. And we did a past life regression, which you can do on your own. You can get quiet, drift back, or ask to have a dream show you something, or do some writing, or be in a meditative state and open for signs for a few days or what have you. But she actually, and this one was a big one, she actually remembered being an angel. And she's flying around having fun, not a bird, she was an angel, and somebody got her, like a fellow angel, maybe not a very nice one, was jealous of her and clipped her wings, and she fell to earth. And that's how she remembers coming to earth. So in that fall were all kinds of secondary feelings like, oh my gosh, I'm abandoned, they're not looking for me, now I'm trapped. So anytime she was in an airplane, all that came back. And until she had the story, she couldn't go in an airplane and just go, this is just an airplane. I'm not falling to earth and stuck here forever. I'm already here. I'm already here. And when it's my time, it's my time. And in the meantime, I'm just going to sit here, and read a book. So we can look at past lives, and, sometimes our ancestors' issues are alive inside of us too.
And then it's up to us to acknowledge that, discover it, and then we can start the healing process.
Exactly. I encourage people, when you're dealing with energy, which is physical, but most of it's really invisible and subtle, you're not constrained with healing. You don't have to just heal your inner child or your current situation. You can send healing back to who you were a long time ago. You can send healing to your ancestors. One of my favorite techniques is somebody's feeling like something their ancestor went through. Maybe they know an ancestor went through the earlier pandemic, in this century, or, maybe they went through a pandemic that, my client in a different century altogether. You send healing, you ask for healing energies to go to whomever had the original trauma, you, an ancestor, maybe even your spouse, and you're picking up on your spouse's fear. So healing goes every direction. So it's important, I think, and exciting and empowering to know that we can deliver healing energies across time.
That is fascinating to know.
Cool, isn't it?
Quite honestly, I hadn't really given much thought to, but it is fascinating. But we're talking about healing, and I know that you're an expert in energy healing. Can we actually use energy healing to develop an immunity against COVID-19? I
think we can. I do. So I believe there's a few things we can do. So for instance, again, in a meditative state, you could even let in the energetics of the virus, not the real virus. You're not going to go pluck it out of the air and put it in your body, but you could let in the energetics of the virus and let it sit in your system for a while. You'll probably feel kind of weird. You'll probably feel a couple of the symptoms, and invite your guides or whoever you work with or a healer, to invite your immune system to develop antibodies or develop a T cell response or whatever it might be. I think we can also plant that sort of a declaration in our energy field. You can picture maybe little crystals or package affirmations in little colored bubbles and envision yourself setting those in your energy field that contain the remedies or the antibodies for the virus. And why not go for it? I think sometimes this is where fear enters in too. We need to keep calming ourselves and remembering that we do have a strong immune system. So keep your immune system strong and remind your immune system it knows how to cope with everything. I mean, look at how many colds we've had. I've had kids. I mean, come on. I think one of my friends says I have an immune system like a horse. But you know what? Because I've been exposed to everything. They go back to school and they turn into petri dishes. I've been through so many things. I actually had COVID at the end of February, early March. I got over it in a day. I knew it wasn't the flu. It was strange, like aches and pains and couldn't breathe really well, but they didn't have all those symptoms in the news by then. And I thought, I was traveling for baseball with my son. So I'm in all the hot spots without knowing it before I came home in 3 weeks. And I thought, this is not the normal flu, but I don't want to know what it is because I don't want to get scared. I just want to get over it. So during that day, I just kept asking for, healing energies to bolster my immune system, went to bed, put 4 blankets on. I said, whatever this fever is, I just want to burn it out. And I was hot all night and I woke up feeling pretty darn good the next morning. I was tired, but that was sort of it. And later, my son got really sick for like 8-9 days. They didn't know how to diagnose it at that point. So about a month or 2 ago, I said to my son, we've had COVID. He goes, no, we haven't, Mom. You're just making that up. I said, no, that weird stuff we had, that was COVID, but we got better because we didn't tell ourselves we had a deadly disease. And so we took the antibody test and we both have antibodies. And so I think it's okay if you catch something too, if you can stay out of the mass panic and remind yourself your immune system knows how to do this. Whatever it is, your immune system knows how to do it.
That is so fascinating. I want to know more about this, but it's time for a break. We're talking with energy healer Cyndi Dale, and we'll be right back.
When is a car not a car?
When it shows up in your dreams. Cars are one of the most common dream symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste.
Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we are speaking with energy healer, intuitive, and author, Cyndi Dale. Cyndi, you were talking about how, we can do things to boost our immune system and help heal ourselves. Just on a practical matter, do we do this? Do we get ourselves into a meditative state, or do you do this through hypnosis? How does that work?
I usually like to get myself or help a client get into a meditative state, but you can do that really quickly. I'm very what the world would call ADHD. So I'm not going to do any of my own exercises for even 10 minutes. I like them quick. And so, so I use a 3-part practice that I call spirit to spirit that gets me into a meditative state really quickly. And then I can get out of it really quickly if I need to as well. You can do it sitting at a stoplight, but not when you're driving, kind of a thing. All right. And I always start by, first I understand that we are all spirit. We all have our own spirit or immortal essence. I do, others do. There's visible and invisible spirits, people and guides and some kind of greater power, whatever you want to call it. And you don't even have to believe in something outside, just a goodness. And so when I'm going to get into a meditative state, I just affirm or acknowledge my own spirit. Like I feel that inside that I am going to be my best self in this moment. I'm immediately calmed down. And then if I'm alone, I acknowledge that there's helping spirits that are positive and uplifting. If I'm with somebody, I acknowledge their spirit, like say if I'm in a session. And then my third step is just to acknowledge and surrender to something greater. And as soon as I do that third step, I'm open. I'm ready to make declarations, to do any psychic visualizations. We talked about creating little orbs with packets of antibodies in them, or practicing, getting antibodies, developing antibodies, or I even if somebody has COVID, the way that I encourage them to work, certainly do all your allopathic, right? But you can visualize the virus. And I go in through what I call the back door of it. I picture that single strand of the RNA, and I see a white light shooting it and dissolving it. And so after we've done something like spirit to spirit, whatever works for us, do your business and let it go. Leave it to continue in the hands of, your own higher spirit, helping spirits, whatever it is you believe in, and you can keep yourself going. I do recognize we're physical beings. Like I said, I did get COVID, just not very long. And so now what I do, because who knows how long the physical antibodies last, like I use electrolytes and I take a lot of vitamins and I eat healthy. And, most cultures across time have blessed their food. So I just quickly do spirit to spirit and ask for a blessing for my electrolytes, for my healthy foods, for this or that or the other thing. So they're like super powered to better help my body as well.
Very interesting. I'm curious about this. Do dreams play a role in your work?
Constantly. Yeah. And I'm fascinated by your dream work. I think dreams are, whether they're daydreams or night dreams or lucid dreams or visitations. When I'm teaching my classes, I always have 1 or 2 units on dreams, because it's how our soul or subconscious or somebody else's soul or subconscious or helpers can communicate with us. So I probably 3 or 4 times a week, at least, clients say, I had a dream. They almost always have it the night before they work with me, because then we can work with it. We can go, oh, that's psychological. So what's happening? Or that was your real dad, your dead dad visiting you. Or we can help them set themselves up to work through an issue through their dreams. I use dreams in my own life all the time. I get a lot of dreams. I would say, though, that there's only 1 or 2 a week that I wake up with that grab me, that I work with, because I get a lot of like what a lot of us do, those stress dreams. Like I was a waitress. So when I'm over busy, I'm waitressing in my dreams. That one is like so overdone, right? Or you lose your car in a parking lot that keeps being built and you can't find them. I know what that means. Like, Cyndi, stop, take a break, ease up, take a day off or whatever. But I work with dreams, and my clients love working with dreams. So that's your forte, are the dreams.
Oh, yeah. How do you help your clients understand their dreams?
Well, and I'd love to have some tips from you, to be honest, if you will add to this. So I try to first help them figure out what type of dream. Is it psychological? So working with an inner part of us or past life or child, something they're trying to figure out. Maybe there's a real being that visited them, so is there a true visitation? If a nightmare, maybe we figure out, is it recurring or new? And if that nightmare monster is something they need to confront or an ally, that there's a part of them that they need to open to and embrace the power of. And I have amazing clients. So a lot of them have those lucid dreams where they're interacting in the dream. So they're really in some sort of an altered state, trying to change something or learn something. So I think I usually start by trying to figure out what's the nature of the dream, and is that where you typically start with people?
Not always. It's very, very individualized, so it depends on what the dream is. Always the most important element for me is the emotion. With the emotion you had in the dream, plus the emotion you have feeling about the dream. And often that's a good starting point. Otherwise, you may talk about, the different images in the dreams and how they relate. It depends on the dream itself. And sometimes, the dream will tell me which way to go in terms of understanding it. And, there are many, many ways you can go. And it's a much longer discussion than this.
That's cool, though.
Yes. But speaking of dreams, though, one of the things I want to talk about with you is through my dream work, I was able to discover spirit guides, who help me and can offer direction to me. How do spirit guides come into play in your work?
They're constant. I do believe, and if nothing else, my work has convinced me that people have spirit guides. I quite typically find people have had at least 2 guides that have been with them throughout their life. Usually, not always though, because things are individual per person. Frequently, there's an ancestor. And frequently there's some other master that could be a power totem or an angel or, somebody who was once alive or a star being, or there's so many different types of guides. So I work with spiritual guides all the time. And fortunately, because people know I do intuitive work and energy healing work, they're not freaked out. It could be a CEO on the phone with me. But because I sort of have this reputation, I do intuitive work, they're always eager if I can say, I think I'm getting this information from your spirit guides and this is what they're relating. But I have an interesting relationship with them because if I'm doing a reading for somebody, sometimes one of their guides talks, sometimes one of my guides talks because they're talking to that person's spirit or their soul, my client's spirit or soul, or they're talking to their spirit guides, and then my spiritual guides have to tell me what's being said. Or let's say we need to do a healing that might require acupuncture, like etheric acupuncture. I might get a guide showing up that's never worked with me or never worked with my client and says, I've got this one. I've been appointed by the on high to help them with this issue. So I have the friendliest office in the world because I could get, up to 20 beings that show up because they're there to care for the client or explain something to me so I can explain it to the client. And sometimes they're funny. This is one of my funniest stories. I'm just going to really quickly share it. So I was working with a woman who wanted to know if she could ever appear on stage and teach something really important. That was her goal. She had this whole backstory where her husband was living with a different woman and, she was not wanting to divorce him because he was dying. I mean, drama can, our lives can be dramatic. And she said, so I want to develop a teaching and go on stage to do it. And in my head, what appeared but a male, a man, I knew he was deceased, and he was naked, but he was wearing an apron, and he was singing. And he told me, tell her to write a trashy novel about what she's going through in her life. It'll sell really big. And he gave me his name. He said, my name is Jack or whatever it was. And I told her this and I said, do you know who this is? She goes, oh, that's my dead brother. She said, he was gay. He loved to sing. He was a great cook. And that was his name. And here's the punchline though. I said, well, maybe you want to write a really cool novel, a romance novel about this and make a lot of money at it. And your brother will help you. And she goes, no. I want to be famous because I'm intelligent. And I thought, I would just write the trashy novel and make a lot of money, but whatever. So you never know who's going to show up.
Oh, it's so true. And my God, there's so many more things I want to ask you, but we are close to the end. So my final question to you is, how can people find out about you and your work?
Oh, I have a website like most of us do. It's cindydale.com, CYNDIDALE.com. It's just spelled funny. If you spell it funny, you'll find me.
Wonderful. Well, Cyndi, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
Thank you and blessings.
We've been speaking with intuitive healer and author Cyndi Dale. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.